Thanks for clicking on this video. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoy the story, consider subscribing and feel free to like the video or drop a comment below. It really helps the algorithm recommend these videos to you and to others who might enjoy them too. Either way, thanks for giving it a chance, and I hope it pulls you in. I have not slept with the lights off since November. I keep every lamp in my house burning from sunset to sunrise. Run my electricity bill up to numbers that make me wince, and I do not care. I will pay any price to never sit in darkness again, because I know what lives there now. I know what waits in the black spaces between the light. My name is Spencer Marsh, and I'm going to tell you about the night the power went out in Grayfield County and the emergency alerts that should not have been possible, and the things that came for everyone who made the mistake of lighting a candle. It was a Tuesday night in early November, around 8:30. I was home alone in my small house on the outskirts of town, watching television after a long day of work. I am an electrician by trade, have been for 6 years now, and I had spent the day rewiring an old farmhouse that should have been condemned decades ago. The owners were a young couple trying to fix the place up on a budget, and I had spent 8 hours crawling through dusty crawl spaces and fighting with wiring that should have been replaced sometime during the Carter administration. My back ached, my hands were sore and scraped, my clothes were covered in insulation dust, and I was looking forward to nothing more than a few hours of mindless TV before falling into bed. A storm had been rolling through all evening, one of those late autumn systems that comes down from the north and settles over the county like it owns the place. Heavy rain lashing against the windows, wind making the trees creak and sway, thunder rumbling somewhere in the distance like a giant clearing its throat. I could hear the rain drumming on my roof, could see the lightning flicker through the curtains every few minutes. Nothing unusual for this time of year. We get storms like this every few weeks in autumn, and I had learned to sleep through them years ago. The weather was just part of life in Grayfield County. I was watching some crime drama, not really paying attention, when the power cut out. One moment, the television was playing, the lights were on, the refrigerator was humming in the kitchen. The next moment, everything was dark and silent. The kind of sudden, total darkness that makes you blink a few times. Certain your eyes must be playing tricks. I was not surprised. Storms knock out power all the time in this area, and the infrastructure is old, prone to failures. I got up from the couch and felt my way toward the kitchen, where I kept a flashlight in the junk drawer. I had done this dozens of times before. Find the flashlight, check the breaker box, wait for the power company to fix whatever line had come down. I found the flashlight and clicked it on. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the familiar shapes of my kitchen. So far, so normal. Then I reached for my phone to check if there were any outage reports, and I found it dead. Not just out of battery, completely dead. The screen would not light up no matter how many times I pressed the power button, even though I had charged it to full that afternoon. I held down the power button for 10 seconds, tried different combinations of buttons, even tried plugging it into the wall out of habit, even though I knew the outlets were dead. Nothing. The phone was as lifeless as a brick. I tried my laptop next, thinking the battery should still have juice. I had used it just that morning, had closed it with at least 60% charge remaining. Nothing. would not power on at all. The power button did not even flicker. My tablet, same thing. I tried my old digital camera, a thing I had not used in years, but kept in a drawer. Dead. Even my battery-powered radio, the one I kept for emergencies exactly like this, was completely unresponsive. I turned the dial, pressed every button, checked that the batteries were properly seated. The batteries were fine. The radio just would not work. This was wrong. This was very wrong. A power outage should not affect battery-powered devices. They should work fine regardless of what the grid is doing. That is the whole point of batteries. That is basic electrical knowledge, the kind of thing I had learned in my first week of training. Batteries are independent systems. They do not care what the power company is doing. I walked to the window and looked outside, hoping to see the glow of a neighbor's flashlight, the headlights of a car on the road, anything that would tell me this was just my house, just my devices, just a problem I could solve. The entire neighborhood was dark. Not just dark like the power is out dark. Dark like nothing I had ever seen before. No street lights, no porch lights, no glow from windows anywhere. The moon must have been behind clouds because there was no moonlight either. Just absolute, complete, impenetrable blackness stretching in every direction. And the storm had stopped. I had not noticed it at first, but the rain was gone, the wind was gone, the thunder was gone. The silence outside was as total as the darkness, a heavy quiet that pressed against the windows like something physical. I was about to go looking for candles when my television turned on by itself. I spun around, my heart lurching in my chest. The TV was on, screen glowing with static, casting a pale blue light across my living room. This was impossible. There was no power. Even if there had been power, the TV had been off, not on standby, completely off. I would have had to press the button to turn it on. The static cleared, and the familiar header of the emergency alert system appeared on screen. That distinctive banner with the color bars and the official-looking text. The harsh tone sounded, that buzzing drone that always makes your spine straighten. And then a message began scrolling across the screen. Emergency alert for Grayfield County. Total blackout in effect. Do not leave your home. Do not attempt to restore power. Do not light candles or use any light source. Stay in darkness until further notice. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what I was reading. Do not use any light source. Stay in darkness. What kind of emergency alert was that? What kind of disaster required people to sit in the dark? The message repeated twice, scrolling slowly across the screen, and then the television went dark again. The static was gone, the glow was gone, and I was standing alone in my living room with only the beam of my flashlight cutting through the blackness. I looked down at the flashlight in my hand. Do not use any light source, the alert had said. For a moment, I considered turning it off. The alert had seemed official, had come through the emergency alert system, had that tone of authority that makes you want to obey without question. But it was ridiculous. Stay in darkness. Do not use a flashlight. That was not how emergencies worked. That was not how anything worked. I decided to ignore it. I moved to the window, flashlight still on, and looked outside to see if anyone else was responding to this bizarre broadcast. That is when I saw the light appear in Carl Whitmore's house. Carl was my neighbor across the street, a widower in his 60s who had lived in that house for as long as I could remember. He kept to himself mostly, waved when he saw me getting the mail, complained about the weather when we happened to be outside at the same time. A quiet, harmless old man. A warm glow appeared in his living room window, the flickering light of a candle or a lantern. I could see Carl's silhouette moving around inside, probably looking for more candles, probably confused by the same impossible blackout that had hit my house. Then I saw something else move past the window. Not Carl. Carl was standing near the light, holding the candle, his shape clearly visible against the glow. This was something else, something outside the window, something darker than the darkness around it. It moved wrong, flowed wrong, like a shadow that had come unstuck from whatever was casting it. It was moving toward the light. I watched, frozen at my window, as the dark shape reached Carl's house. It did not stop at the glass. It passed through the window like the window was not there, flowed into the room like smoke or water or something that did not care about physical barriers. Carl's candle went out. The light vanished, and Carl's house was dark again, as dark as everything else, as dark as the whole world had become. I could not see what happened next. Without the light, there was nothing to see, just darkness where a moment ago there had been a man and a candle and a living room. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, staring at the dark window, waiting for the candle to relight, waiting for Carl to appear again. He did not. Carl Whitmore was gone. I had watched it happen, watched something made of darkness flow into his house, and now he was simply not there anymore. I looked down at the flashlight in my hand, its beam suddenly feeling less like illumination and more like a beacon, a signal, a dinner bell. I turned it off. The darkness closed in around me, total and absolute, the kind of darkness that feels like a physical weight pressing against your eyes. I could not see my hand in front of my face, could not see the walls of my own living room, could not see anything at all. I stood very still and listened. At first, nothing, just silence, as complete as the darkness. Then a sound, soft and distant, like something large moving through the neighborhood. Not footsteps exactly, more like a dragging, a sliding, a sound that did not match anything I knew how to identify. My television flickered on again. The glow made me flinch this time, made me want to duck away from the light, but I forced myself to look at the screen. If the alerts had information, I needed to know it. Confirmed incidents in your area. Multiple residents have been taken. If you have used a light source, remain still and do not create more light. They are attracted to light, created by human hands. Electronic light does not attract them. Stay in darkness. The television went dark again. I stood in my living room and tried to process what I had just learned. The things, whatever they were attracted to light created by human hands. Candles, flashlights, matches, lanterns, anything a person deliberately lit. But electronic light, like the television, did not attract them. Maybe because it was not created the same way, was not sparked into existence by human action. I did not know. I did not understand. I just knew I could not turn on my flashlight again. I also knew the EAS should not be working. Nothing electronic was working. My phone was dead, my laptop was dead, even my battery-powered radio was dead. The television should not have been able to turn on, should not have been able to receive a broadcast, should not have been able to do anything at all. But it did. Somehow, the emergency alert system was functioning when nothing else would. Someone or something was sending these messages, was warning people, was trying to save lives. I did not know who. I did not know how. I just knew I was going to listen. I felt my way through my dark house, hands outstretched, moving slowly to avoid bumping into furniture. I found a wall and slid down to sit on the floor, as far from the windows and doors as I could get. I set the flashlight down beside me, close enough to grab if I absolutely needed it, but I promised myself I would not turn it on. I sat in the darkness and I waited. Over the next few hours, I watched lights appear in other houses through my windows. I had moved to a spot where I could see outside without being too close to the glass, a corner of my living room where I could observe the neighborhood while staying in the deepest shadows. Small glows appeared, one by one, in houses up and down my street. Candles and flashlights, lanterns and matches, the warm illumination of people who had not heard the warnings or had not believed them. I saw a light come on in the Henderson house 3 doors down, a bright flashlight beam sweeping across their living room windows. I saw candles flicker to life in old Mrs. Patterson's place at the end of the block. I saw what looked like a camping lantern in the upstairs window of the young family who had moved in last spring. Each time, the light lasted only a few minutes, sometimes less than a minute. Then it would go out, suddenly, completely, extinguished in an instant, and the house would be dark again, as dark as everything else, as dark as the whole world had become. I never saw what happened inside those houses. I could only see the light appear and then vanish, could only imagine what was happening in those rooms, could only wonder if those families had time to understand before whatever came for them arrived. I counted at least 7 houses where I saw light appear and then vanish. 7 families who might be gone now, taken by whatever moved through the darkness. 7 homes that would be empty when morning came, if morning came at all. Around 10:30, I heard footsteps on my front porch. Heavy footsteps, slow and deliberate, the creak of old boards under weight. They moved from the porch steps to my front door and stopped. I held my breath. I did not move. I did not make a sound. A long pause, and then a voice spoke through the wood of my door. "Spencer, are you in there? I saw your flashlight earlier. Are you okay?" It was Carl's voice. My neighbor Carl, the man I had watched get taken, his voice coming from my front porch like he had just walked over to borrow a cup of sugar. I did not answer. "Spencer, I need help. Something is wrong out here. Can you let me in? Can you turn on a light so I can find the door?" The voice was perfect. It sounded exactly like Carl, had his cadence, his slightly raspy tone, the way he pronounced my name. But Carl was gone. I had seen him taken. Whatever was standing on my porch, it was not Carl anymore. "Spencer, please. I am scared. It is so dark out here. I just need a little light. Just turn on your flashlight for a second so I can see." I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making any sound. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure the thing outside could hear it. The voice kept asking, kept pleading, kept requesting light. It told me it was cold, that it was confused, that it just needed my help for a moment. It sounded so much like Carl that I almost believed it, almost reached for the flashlight, almost made the mistake that would have ended me. Eventually, after what felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes, the footsteps moved away. I heard them go down the porch steps, across my yard, and then fade into the distance. I let out a breath I did not know I had been holding. The television came on again around midnight. Attention Grayfield County. Confirmed casualties continue to rise. Do not respond to voices of family or friends. They are being used as lures. Do not open doors. Do not create light. Dawn will end the event. Dawn will end the event. That meant I just had to survive until sunrise. I could do that. I could sit in the dark for a few more hours. I could ignore the voices and keep the flashlight off and wait for morning. But the voices did not stop. Throughout the night, I heard more of them. Voices calling from outside my windows, from my yard, from the street. Each one was different. Each one was familiar. My mother's voice calling from outside my window, asking why I would not answer my phone, saying she was worried about me. My ex-girlfriend's voice begging me to help her, saying she was lost in the dark and could not find her way. A child's voice I did not recognize, crying softly, asking for someone to please turn on a light because it was so scared of the dark. I did not respond to any of them. I sat against my wall with my hands pressed over my ears, and I waited for them to go away. Some of them lingered for a long time, calling and pleading and weeping. Others only stayed for a few minutes before moving on to another house, another potential victim. Around 3 in the morning, the silence became almost unbearable. No voices outside, no movement that I could hear, just complete, total quiet, pressing in on me from all sides. I was exhausted, terrified, desperate for any kind of light or comfort. My eyes ached from straining to see in darkness where there was nothing to see. My body was cramped from sitting still for hours. I found myself reaching for the flashlight, my thumb resting on the switch. Just a moment of light, I told myself. Just a second. Just long enough to see that I was still alone, that nothing had gotten into the house, that the walls were still walls, and the floor was still floor, and I was still me, sitting in my living room. I caught myself and pulled my hand away. I set the flashlight on the other side of the room, far enough that I would have to get up to reach it, far enough that I could not make that mistake in a moment of weakness. I sat in the darkness and waited. Then I heard something that made my blood freeze. A sound from inside the house, not from outside, not from the porch or the yard. From somewhere inside, somewhere close. The kitchen maybe, the hallway, somewhere in my own home, where I should have been safe, where I should have been alone. Something brushed against the counter. I heard it clearly, the soft scrape of something touching the laminate surface. Something disturbed the hanging pots over my stove, making them clink softly together. That familiar sound I heard every time I reached for a pan. But I was not in the kitchen. I was in the living room, pressed against the wall, and something else was moving through my house. I held perfectly still. I did not breathe. I pressed myself against the wall and tried to become invisible, tried to become nothing, tried to be so still and so quiet that whatever was in my house would pass me by. I thought about the flashlight across the room, thought about how far away it was, thought about whether I could reach it if I needed to. I would not reach for it. I would not turn it on. I would sit here in the dark and I would be silent and I would survive. The movement continued. I heard it in the kitchen, drawers sliding open, cabinet doors creaking. Then the hallway, the soft pad of something moving across the hardwood floor. Then closer, into the living room, circling, searching. It moved slowly, deliberately, like it was looking for something, like it was looking for me, like it knew I was here somewhere and it just needed to find exactly where. I could not see it. I could not see anything. The darkness was absolute, total, impenetrable. I could only hear it moving through the black, getting closer, then farther, then closer again. At one point, I swear it passed within feet of where I was sitting, close enough that I could have reached out and touched it if I had been stupid enough to try. I felt something in the air as it passed, not a breeze exactly, but a displacement, a coldness, a sense of something large and wrong moving through space that should have been empty. I did not move. I did not breathe. I just sat there and waited to die, waited for it to find me, waited for cold hands or sharp teeth or whatever these things used to take people. The movement stopped. A door opened somewhere in the house. The creak of hinges I recognized as my back door, the shift of air pressure as the seal broke. Then footsteps, moving away across my back porch, and then silence again. It was gone. Somehow, impossibly, it had searched my house and not found me. I do not know how long I sat there after it left. Long enough for my muscles to cramp from holding still. Long enough for my racing heart to finally slow to something approaching normal. Long enough that I almost convinced myself I had imagined the whole thing. But I had not imagined it. Something had been in my house, moving in the darkness, searching for me. Something had opened my back door and walked through my home and left again without finding me. I did not move from that spot until I saw the first light of dawn. Around 6:30, I noticed the darkness beginning to change. Not lighter exactly, but less absolute, less heavy. The first grey hints of dawn seeping through the windows, the promise of morning finally arriving after the longest night of my life. The television came on one final time. Dawn approaching. Event will conclude at sunrise. Remain in place until full daylight. Power will be restored shortly. I watched the windows as the grey light grew stronger, as the shapes of furniture and walls began to emerge from the darkness, as the world slowly came back into existence. At 6:47, exactly as the alert had predicted, the sun crested the horizon. Light flooded through my windows, normal morning light, warm and golden and beautiful. I had never been so happy to see the sun in my entire life. I felt something release in my chest, a tension I'd been holding for hours, a fear that had been coiled so tight I thought it might never unwind. I was still alive. I had made it through the night. The power came back on all at once. Lights flickering to life, the refrigerator humming, the television turning on to normal programming like nothing had happened. My phone booted up when I pressed the power button, showing dozens of missed calls and messages from before the blackout. Everything worked again, like the last 10 hours had been a dream. But it was not a dream. I looked out at the neighborhood in the morning light. Some houses looked normal, unchanged, their occupants probably still sleeping or just waking up. Others had doors standing open, windows broken, signs of something wrong. I did not see any of my neighbors outside. Over the following days, the scope of what happened became clear. Hundreds of people were missing across multiple counties. Everyone who had lit a candle during the blackout. Everyone who had turned on a flashlight. Everyone who had opened a door to voices they thought they recognized. They were just gone, vanished. No bodies, no evidence, no explanation. Carl Whitmore's house was empty. His candle was still on the floor where it had fallen when the light went out. But Carl was nowhere to be found. His car was in the driveway. His wallet was on the kitchen counter. His dinner was still sitting half-eaten on the table. He had simply ceased to exist. I was interviewed by police, by reporters, by people who wanted to understand what had happened. I told them about the alerts, about the rules, about what I had seen happen to Carl. Some people believed me. Most did not. The official story became a mass disappearance event with no explanation, a mystery that would probably never be solved. The emergency alerts I described were not in any system, not recorded anywhere, as if they had never happened. No one could explain how they had been broadcast, who had sent them, or why only some people had received them. I know they happened. I know they saved my life, but I cannot prove it. The missing people were never found. Their families held funerals without bodies, mourned without closure, and slowly, painfully, tried to move on. The media covered it for a few weeks, then moved on to other stories. Grayfield County's Night of Darkness became a footnote, a curiosity, a thing that happened once and would probably never be explained. But I know better. I know something came that night, something that lived in the darkness and fed on those who tried to bring light into it. I know the emergency alert system saved everyone who listened to it, who trusted the impossible warnings, who sat in the dark and waited for dawn. And I know it could happen again. Weeks later, I was sitting in my living room, every light in the house burning bright, when the power flickered. Just a brief flutter, the lights dimming for a second before coming back to full strength. My television turned on by itself, showing static for just a moment. Then it turned off again, and everything was normal. I sat very still, staring at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. Outside my window, the sun was setting, the sky turning orange and pink, and then slowly, inevitably, dark. I have flashlights in every room of my house now, but I have promised myself I will never use them. I have candles in a box under my bed, but I will never light them. If the darkness comes again, if the blackout returns, if those alerts start scrolling across my screen, I will sit in the dark and wait. Because now I know what waits there. I know what moves through the blackness when the power fails. I know what hungers for the light we create with our own hands. And I know that the next blackout could come at any time. Tonight, tomorrow, next week, the power could cut out and the darkness could return, and those things could flow through the streets again, searching for anyone foolish enough to light a candle. I watch the sun set every evening now, counting the hours until dawn, watching the shadows grow long across my floor. I leave every light burning, run up my electricity bill, and pray that the grid holds. Because if the power goes out again, if I find myself in that absolute darkness with nothing but a flashlight and a choice, I do not know if I will be strong enough to stay in the dark. I do not know if anyone would be, and that is what truly terrifies me. Not the things in the darkness, the temptation to reach for the light,